And what we've seen in white collar sectors is that recently their pay growth has been virtually flat from a year ago. Whereas in manufacturing, we've seen a little bit of a bump up, but not much. You know what sector is really seeing growth for new hires? Construction, because housing still seems to be in very high demand.